This is my story, how I got captured in Kursk, Russia. By its incredible historical gems.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Guess what? I am back in Kursk to continue the exploration of this beautiful city. So stay tuned and let's dive right into it. Let's go.
Hi friends, and here I am again by the wheel of fate in Kursk. This time, the city greeted me with an air raid alert right from my doorstep. I didn't seek shelter, apparently because of the prolonged stay in the border area. However, my friends, this isn't the right course of action. It's not worth risking your safety. I've already shared a detailed video about this city of military glory on my channel. However, upon my return, I realized this was an excellent opportunity to show you what I missed last time, given the limited time. Despite the constant worries and the proximity of the front line, Kursk continues to thrive and even prepares for the upcoming holiday season. Every shopping center has adorned its Christmas trees, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the first to see one. Next door stands a monument dedicated to the Kursk region's most iconic symbol, the Kursk Nightingale. The Kursk Nightingale, officially opened on September 24, 2016, holds a special place in the hearts of the region. Its song is a harmonious blend of flute-like melodies, clicking sounds, squawking, whistling, and various other variations. Only male nightingales sing, using their unique trills and special needs to attract potential mates. The Kursk Nightingale has captured the imagination of writers, poets, and prose enthusiasts. For instance, Ivan Turgenev described the Kursk Nightingale's singing as unlike any other, highlighting its distinctive trills and the rare cuckoo flight. The sculpture of the singing bronze bird stands atop a semicircular laurel crown. At the base of the monument, an inscription reads, Kursk Nightingale. The sculpture's height of 3 meters 10 centimeters was carefully chosen to ensure that visitors and residents of the city could capture memorable photos. The artist behind this remarkable creation is Yuri Kireev. Just a stone throw away from Karl Marx Street lies a significant memorial complex dedicated to the fallen soldiers of the Great Patriotic War of 1941 to 1945. This place holds immense importance for the city and serves as a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made during the pivotal period. The memorial, built on the former site of officers' and soldiers' cemeteries, honors the brave soldiers who lost their lives in battles or succumbed to wounds at Kursk military hospitals. The complex was unveiled on May 9, 1984, designed by architect Mark Lvovich Teplitsky and sculpted by Dmitry Valentin Alexeyevich, Barteniev Vladimir Ivanovich, and Krivolapov Nikolaev Petrovich. In front of the memorial's entrance on both sides, horizontal steles bear the inscription, "Your feet is eternal in the hearts of generations, left, and descendants owe their lives to you, right." On June 24, 2020, a monument of the World War II veteran was unveiled at the memorial's entrance. Two figures are depicted on the pedestal. A veteran in military uniform holding a bouquet of flowers and his grandson wearing his grandfather's uniform cap and holding a book to the heroes of the Battle of Kursk. An alley extends from the square leading to the central obelisk of glory where the eternal flame burns. The symbolic steles along the alley depict the helmets of the participants of the Battle of Kursk, tankers, pilots, and infantrymen. The flame of the eternal flame was brought to Kursk on 2 armored personnel carriers from Belgorod and Oryol. The flames merged, symbolizing the unity of the 3 cities that participated in the Battle of Kursk, Oryol, and Belgorod. Near the central stele, there is a memorial dedicated to the victims of the Kursk nuclear submarine tragedy. The monument to submariners was unveiled in Kursk in 2003, 3 years after the tragic loss of 118 sailors and officers during the exercises in the Barents Sea. Tragically, no one survived the incident. Your valor is immortalized in the hearts of generations, is inscribed on the Kursk Memorial of the Fallen. On the reverse side of the stone funeral stele, several crosses adorn it, and near the stone slab itself, a sculpture of the grieving white angel stands. 12 sailors from the lost crew found eternal rest on Kursk land. Their graves, adorned with red flowers, are situated right next to the memorial. Each grave bears anchors encircled by chains, a testament to their service. The monument was crafted by skilled Kursk sculptors. The monument draws inspiration from the genuine hull of the Kursk submarine, which miraculously emerged from the depths of the Barents Sea long after the tragedy. The funeral stele, as envisioned by the architects, symbolizes the turnabout deck house of the submarine, a poignant reminder of the explosion that claimed their lives. Beyond the memorial, over 2,900 soldiers and officers of the Red Army who perished during the 1941 to 1944 war lie in 10 mass graves meticulously crafted in the form of mounds. The memorial spans a vast expanse, boasting numerous commemorative plaques, sculptures, and obelisks, creating a well-maintained and inviting space. I highly recommend visiting this place during the warmer months to pay your respect to the valiant defenders of the Kursk region. As I continued my journey along Karl Marx Street, I passed by Nikitsky Cemetery, which adorns the memorial grounds. The Church of the Assumption of St. Nikita stands prominently behind the cemetery. The first wooden church dedicated to the Assumption of the Mother of God was constructed in 1786 outside the Moscow gates. Tragically, it burned down in 1846, prompting the construction of a stone church with a chapel in honor of the great martyr Nikita on the same site. This brick single-domed temple features a bell tower. The main volume is a pillarless octagon on 4 temple with a large bulbous head. A small refectory connects the temple to a 3-tiered tent bell tower. 2 semicircular apses adorn the church on the east side, while the rectangular vestibule graces the west side. The entrances from the west and south are steep porches. A 4-row iconostasis with oil paintings on a stencil from the early 20th century has been preserved. Later, a 1-story building was constructed for the school and a 2-story building was built for the clergy. During the Soviet era, bells and crosses were removed from the temple and a weighhouse was placed in their place. In 1942, the temple reopened and has remained open ever since. There were 3 Domitian temples in Kursk, and this temple was named after the chapel in honor of the great martyr Nikita. The locals speak fondly of this place, describing the pleasant atmosphere, friendly people, and sincere services. Unfortunately, I was unable to enter the temple and speak with the church servants, so I rely on the parishioners' accounts. After walking a bit further from the Temple of God, I arrived at the Temple of Consumption, friends. I'm not talking about the literal Temple of Consumption here, but rather about the modern shopping malls. These malls have become more popular than churches these days. As the New Year's Eve mood envelops you, music, jewelry, and sparkling lights everywhere creates a festive atmosphere. It's all set to get you in a holiday spirit and motivate you to buy gifts for your loved ones and maybe even for yourself. Compare how the shopping mall center looked just a couple months ago. The atmosphere was completely different. The ubiquitous clocks are ticking, reminding us that there is not much time left until the new year. But I prefer to take my time and enjoy the festives, so I decided to leave this fabulous space and return to the gloomy, cold streets of Kursk. After leaving the shopping center, I decided to skip Lenin Street. I had already provided a detailed description of the street in my first video about Kursk. However, for those who missed it, I recommend following the link in the description. I then moved to the Znamensky Cathedral and the Resurrection Church, which I also visited during my last trip. However, this time, my attention was drawn to one of the most ancient structures on the territory of modern Kursk, the ancient tower of Znamensky Monastery fence. Many Kursk historians believe the tower was constructed in the 18th century, while others suggest it was built in the 17th century. According to the latter theory, it was one of the 4 towers depicted on the 1722 outline. There was another tower on the current electrical equipment plant site, but it was demolished in the early 1960s. The lower part of the tower is made of large bricks with peculiar dimensions for the 17th century, while the upper part is made of bricks that are similar in size to the current ones. This suggests that the ancient tower from the 17th century, as depicted on the 1722 outline, was completed and replaced with the current tower. Perhaps this explains why the current and the second later demolished towers are shown as planned for construction on the 1785 monastery plan. After all, there were no concept of reconstruction back then. If we compare the relatively conventional outline of 1722 in the planning sense, the much stricter plan of 1785, all the innovations of the city acropolis between 1782 and 1826, and its current state, it is quite possible to assume that the tower on Sonina Street stands on the same location where it was erected in 1680. They underwent renovations at the end of the 18th century, and that's all. Now, the tower has two separate entrances. This is the result of technical reconstruction that took place in the last few decades. Both entrances are made from rectangular metal boxes welded from a channel. The old entrance, which featured arched brickwork without a reinforced concrete or metal lintels, appears to have been lost. At the base, on the monastery side, the tower is covered with earth up to the upper edge of the brick fence into which it is inscribed. From Sonina Street, the structure appears taller and slimmer. Although it is likely buried on that side, it is noticeable in old engravings. The ratio of diameter to height is much more favorable to the latter parameter compared to today. It is unfortunate that the former governor, who repeatedly promised to restore the cultural heritage site and the sole surviving element of the Kursk Kremlin, never kept his word. As you can see, the tower is in poor condition, and it is uncertain whether it will be restored to its original form. To be honest, such moments frustrate me, when the authorities are so negligent about preserving the history and heritage left behind by their ancestors. Not much has survived, and it seems to me that we must do our utmost to preserve these fragments of history for future generations. After visiting the old tower and getting quite cold, I remembered about another place that I missed during my previous visit.
Hi guys, the last time I was here, it was autumn I guess, and now it's winter. And today is really very cold, but what can I do?
To get there, I had to take a short ride around the city. I won't deny it, it was a bit of a detour. I couldn't have done it on foot, as it was too cold in Kursk that day. Fortunately, there aren't any issues with public transport here, and I arrived at the right place quickly. To begin with, I looked at the territory of the Museum of Archaeology. I wasn't drawn to the museum itself, but rather to the building that houses it. This is the house of merchant Chlaponin, also known as the Chambers of Boyars of Ramadanovsky. It is one of the oldest stone buildings of secular architecture in Kursk, dating back to the middle of the 18th century. It was built in the architectural style of Moscow, Russia during the 16th to 18th centuries. The first documented owner of the estate was the merchant Simeon Ivanovich Chlaponin, a prominent figure in Kursk at the end of the 18th century. He held the positions of Ratman of the city magistrate and then mayor. On July 25, 1810, Chlaponin's son Dmitry Semyonovich sold the estate to Peter Mikhailovich Venchinkin for 4,500 rubles in banknotes. At that time, the buildings were in a state of disrepair. The roofs were missing, the window frames and floors were ruined. The new owner meticulously restored the house. In 1913, the building was purchased from the Vetchenkins by the Kursk Noble Assembly for 18,000 rubles in banknotes to establish a museum in it in honor of the 10th centenary of the Romanov house. The house underwent a thorough restoration in 2 years, but after the October Revolution, it became vacant. The surrounding population gradually stole and plundered its property, causing the building to deteriorate once again. In 1922, the municipal utilities, which were responsible for the house, issued a military unit with an order to remove the part of the roof and rafters. In the 1920s, museum workers attempted to draw public attention to the unique building. In 1922, it was transferred to the Provincial Museum,
which due to insufficient funds for repairs began leasing the house. In the early 1930s, the building underwent a renovation that significantly altered its appearance. Only the ancient Russian Teremok, adorned with massive octagonal columns, has retained its original facade. In February 1936, the regional house of young tourists was established here, complete with a hotel for visiting guests, a tourist museum, a reading room, and 3 additional rooms allocated to the editorial office of the regional children's newspaper Pioneer. After the World War II, the former merchant's house was repurposed as a warehouse for industrial goods. A hardware warehouse and an office for the base were located in one wing, while the chambers were used as a textile warehouse for the Kursk Snapspeed base, and the Gorana warehouse occupied the other wing. In 1985, the tenants vacated the building, leaving it vacant for 5 years before it was once again looted. In 1990, the estate comprising the buildings was transferred to the balance of the Committee for Culture of the Kursk region. After the restoration work was completed, the Kursk State Regional Museum of Archaeology commenced operations in the building from the end of 1993. The remarkable and enduring history of this house is truly remarkable. What a journey it has endured. Next to the museum stands another architectural monument of federal significance, the Church of the Holy Trinity. The church is situated on the site of the former male Trinity Monastery, established under Boris Godunov in 1597. Tragically, the monastery was destroyed and burned by Lithuanian troops during the time of Troubles, 1612. Subsequently, the monastery was rebuilt, later assigned to the Kursk Znamensky Monastery, and eventually abolished. The former monastery church, which stood on this site, was wooden. In 1742, a modern church building was erected. Some sources mention earlier construction dates of 1733 or 1740. In 1782, parishioners rebuilt the church. In the 19th century, it underwent 2 expansions, the Northern Isles in 1829 and the Southern Isles in 1842. During winter, the lower church served as a place of worship, while the brighter and more spacious summer church was located on the 2nd floor. In 1940, the temple closed during the Great Patriotic War. The bell tower's head was removed, and an air defense observation post was installed in its place. Services resumed in late 1941 during the occupation, and they continued until 1961 when the church closed again. During the restoration that began in 1971, the bell tower's head was restored. In 1989, the church building housed a planetarium. In 1992, the first floor of the church was transferred to the Russian Orthodox Church, and the 2nd floor followed in 1995 after the planetarium was relocated to one of the premises of the Kursk Garrison Officer's House, which I discussed in my first video about Kursk. In the early 1990s, an iconic painting school was established at the church in honor of St. Andrew Rublev on August 6, 2012, on the day of a prayerful memory of the holy princes Boris and Gleb. Metropolitan Herman of Kursk and Rila consecrated the 3 thrones in the lower church of the Trinity Church and conducted the divine liturgy there. The temple adheres to the tradition of Russian church architecture from the second half of the 17th century. It is characterized by modest decorative elements. Unfortunately, I couldn't visit the church today as I have a cold and my entire walk will be confined to the city streets. Well, my friends, here is another example of the wasteful attitude towards cultural heritage sites. This is the former estate of Merchant Lavrov, which is in such a neglected state these days. It has largely lost its appearance, and some elements of the architectural ensemble have been demolished altogether. I believe that such a frivolous attitude towards objects of historical value has led the city to lose its status as a historical settlement since 2010. After examining all forgotten mansions, I moved to house number 15 on Gorky Street, formerly Sergeyevskaya, which now houses the Basic Medical College. Once, this house, built in 1890, belonged to the renowned Kursk merchant and philanthropist Nikolai Vasilievich Gladkov. The Gladkovs primarily traded in furs and also had a sewing factory for outwear. They were also known for their charitable work. Anna Ivanovna Gladkova donated 100,000 rubles for the construction and initial maintenance of a hospital for infectious patients.
Her son, Ivan Pavlovich, completed the construction. Subsequently, the medical institution became known as the Simashko People's Hospital, a name that is still widely recognized by the Koreans. Many famous people have visited the walls of this house. The cook who worked there was a very young Dyashka Vinikova, who later became a renowned pre-revolutionary Russian stage actress known as Nadezhda Plevitskaya. Vera Mukhina, a world-famous sculptor and author of the iconic Worker and Collective Farm Girl, painted her first oil portrait in this house. During the World War I, the building served as a military hospital. After the October Revolution, it was occupied by the Provincial Emergency Commission and later became the 74th Consolidated Evacuation Hospital. In 1923, after its liquidation, the house was transferred to the Faculty of Workers to house a 200-bed student dormitory. Following the closure of the Labour Faculty in 1927, a dormitory for unemployed and street mothers and their children was established there. Before the Great Patriotic War, a children's hospital was opened in the building. Fortunately, the building sustained minimal damage during military operations and occupation. After the liberation of Kursk from Nazi invaders, the Kursk Regional Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union occupied the house. In autumn 1943, Anastas Mikoyan addressed a meeting on grain delivery by collective farms and the state farms. Until 1955, Maternity Hospital No. 3 functioned in Gladkov's house, and after his relocation to a new building on Lenin Street, the Regional Tuberculosis Dispensary and his hospital were established there. In 1975, the building housed the Kursk Medical School, which later became the Kursk Basic Medical College. The college still occupies the building today. A chilling legend is associated with the merchant Gladkov's house. It is said that the day after his funeral, the coffin containing his body was exhumed and placed at the door of his deceased house. The reason behind this act was allegedly the resentment of beggars who had resented the merchant for giving them little alms during his lifetime. In search of jewelry, they dug up his grave but found nothing. Instead of giving up, they decided to take the coffin to the house. Across the street from Gladkov's house, a parish school was built in 1911. Notably, the school's architecture featured an open brick facade adorned with various decorative elements. At this point, friends, I finally froze and retreated straight to the Kursk bus station. Honestly, bus stations in all cities depress me for some reason. Their vibe is always negative. Airports and railway stations are completely different matter. But my route through Kursk region brought me here, so I'm driving on in a cold bus and saying goodbye to you for a while. By tradition, I'm waiting for your comments under the video. Also, don't forget to like this video. See you soon, friends. Goodbye.